An awards season dominated by #MeToo ended with the Oscars on Sunday. The New York Times' co-chief film critics, Manala Dargis and A.O. Scott, and the critic at large Wesley Morris discussed the telecast and what it said about Hollywood and our moment. Manala Dargis: it is axiomatic that the Academy Awards make for seriously lousy television, but I would like to accentuate the positive, for now. It was very moving to see some of the women who presented on Sunday night, starting with Salma Hayek, Ashley Judd, and Annabella Shora, whose accusations against Harvey Weinstein have rocked the industry. Similarly moving was Frances McDormand's acceptance speech for Best Actress, which quickly turned into a call to action. She not only asked all the female nominees in the room to stand with her, Meryl, if you do it everybody else will, come on, but she also asked the industry to do the same with 2 words, inclusion rider. These riders are a way that the industry can immediately start diversifying. As the researcher Dr. Stacy Smith has suggested, stars can contractually require diversity both on screen and in jobs like art director, set builder, and sound technician, areas where women and minority populations tend to be radically underrepresented. It's strange and obvious that Mr. Weinstein has, for all the profound damage he has done, helped galvanize the campaign against industry sexism. That said, I'm glad that the Oscars didn't become the Harveys, because it would have been depressing and wrong if Mr. Weinstein and the ghost of his career had haunted the ceremonies even more than they did. A.O. Scott: the most striking thing, here in the room, about watching the female nominees stand? There were so few of them. That was a Twitter observation from our colleague Jodi Kantor, whose reporting with Megan Twohey did so much to make these Oscars Harvey-free, and to set off the earthquake that provided Sunday night with awkward as well as inspiring moments. The inclusion montage, for example, struck a moving and hopeful note, but it also wrote a check that Hollywood, and the Academy, have yet to cash. The presenters on the telecast were far more diverse, far more representative of the multifarious energies of popular culture than the winners. This is not to blame the winners or shame the awards, which have always represented the lagging edge of cultural change. They perform an annual ritual, charming and infuriating, lavish and tedious, devoted to conjuring up a fantasy of continuity and consensus. But in such a polarized time, consensus is all but unimaginable, and it's tricky to celebrate the glorious history of movies when parts of the ugly underbelly of that history have been so recently exposed. Wesley Morris: hey you too. I'm also relieved that this didn't become the Harvey show, even though in many ways it was. But I am really struck by what I think is a huge development happening in our movie culture right now. We tend, in times like these, politically, socially, morally tense ones, to look to the culture to address them. Even the most benign films in the 1970s seemed in some way to be a response to or to have absorbed their moment. So we can see allegories from Watergate and the Vietnam War in both work about those subjects and in work that ostensibly has nothing to do with them. The 70s were just a decade, but they were also an atmosphere, and that atmosphere was present in a lot of the culture this country produced. And for a minute, I actually believed that what we were looking for in the last 2 years were direct responses to the Trump administration. But what if I've been looking for the wrong thing? What if the crux of the moment really since 2008 is a matter of selfhood and representation and political correctives? This isn't shocking. But it is worth noting. In almost any other year, Dunkirk, or Darkest Hour, or The Post would have been slam dunk Best Picture winners. These are movies by white men starring mostly most white men, and Meryl Streep, and they fell out of a lot of the serious forecasts for the major categories despite, in at least the cases of Dunkirk and The Post, being nearly perfectly made. The energies were around Get Out and Three Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri, two very different films about America right now. Although with Three Billboards, I should say about America. Dargis, I've started to think that the Academy members are trying to correct their own industry's flaws by voting for movies that don't fit the old ideas about Best Picture. Some of these recent wins surely reflect the increased diversity of the membership, but some of this may also be an earnest self-conscious corrective. As to the underbelly that Tony mentioned, we caught a flash of it every so often. We saw it most directly when Ms. Shora, her voice at times faltering, addressed the room while she helped present what was termed new, activist, change-minded, voices. "Hi, it's nice to see you all again, it's been a while." She was warmly greeted. Someone yelled, "Love you." And the applause sounded sincere, at least on my TV. At the same time, how many in that very same room, even some who were applauding, have been complicit in all the ugliness that continues to be exhumed? And I don't mean only those who did business with Mr. Weinstein while knowing or at least guessing the truth about him. I mean everyone else in that room who has never hired a woman to do anything except look beautiful or prop up the male hero. Everyone who never casts Asians or Latinos or African Americans except as tokens, even while, occasionally, publicly fawning over their famous black best friends. I'm very hopeful about some of the righteous activism that has emerged in the wake of the allegations against Mr. Weinstein, and it was a relief not to see him last night. But of course he's just part of the industry's larger, systemic problems. And, as we've discussed before, repeatedly, the Oscars are not the movie industry. They are simply its public dolled-up face. Because I am pretty sure that the biggest night in Hollywood happens during Disney's annual shareholders meeting. That's where the action is, where the money is, where the power is. Scott, those shareholders will be basking in the afterglow of and cashing dividend checks fattened by Star Wars, The Last Jedi, Coco and Black Panther, and possibly also A Wrinkle in Time. Those movies show diversity taking hold at the tentpole level, which is the strongest evidence that it's a matter of economic calculation as well as social consciousness. And why shouldn't it be? White men have held a near monopoly on movie storytelling for the last 90 years, and as Kumail Nanjiani suggested on Sunday night, there's nothing threatening about everyone else getting a turn. But there's never progress without backlash, so we can expect a certain amount of grumbling about Hollywood liberals and social justice warriors, and about how a white man just can't catch a break anymore. And nothing is easier than pointing out the hypocrisy of the entertainment industry. Except maybe remarking on how long and boring the Oscar broadcast is. A lot of good movies were recognized, though, including a bunch that might have seemed too small, too genre or too niche in past years. I wish Lady Bird had gotten something, that Get Out had gotten more, and that The Florida Project had been more of a presence. Still, I'm not mad that The Shape of Water won, and kind of astonished that it almost looks like the safe, mainstream choice for Best Picture. Morris: yes, Tony, it feels meaningful that the Best Picture winner wasn't about World War II or journalism, during the Vietnam War, but about a woman whose soulmate and lover is an amphibian, and that it was made by a Mexican man. I don't think The Shape of Water is a great movie, but I do like it. and I don't know how it won, but somehow it did. And, after Moonlight last year, ultimately, a love story between two black men, that feels like a rejection and an embrace. Dargiso, I wish many things, including that another movie had won Best Picture and other performers had carted off the Best Supporting statuettes. Guillermo del Toro seems like a nice man. And both Sam Rockwell and Allison Janney are exceptionally fine actors. I'm looking forward to whatever all three do next. I'll just pretend Mr. Rockwell won for Moon and Ms. Janney won for anything but Tanya. Honestly, other than the sight of all those great women last night, I am most pleased that Three Billboards didn't win Best Picture or anything else, really. The love for it is baffling, though it does suggest that with the lack of love for the Florida Project class is the industry's biggest blind spot. I look forward to tweeting next year that Raoul Peck's The Young Karl Marx was robbed.